thank you very much for joining us. So let's get right into it. What are the types of marriages in South Africa that can be registered? The South African law recognizes three different types of marriage regimes. You have civil marriages, civil unions, and customary marriages. Religious marriages are also recognized to an extent, and there is some very new case law changing this landscape as well. Marriages are registered at the Department of Home Affairs. What is considered a civil marriage? Civil marriages are the most common type of marriage in South Africa. Currently, only heterosexual couples can enter into a civil marriage regime. In South Africa, three different civil marriage regimes can be registered. You have a marriage in community of property, a marriage out of community of property subject to the accrual system, or a marriage out of community of property with the accrual system's exclusion. It is important to fully understand each regime's legal, financial, and tax consequences before you embark on a marriage in order to help you make an informed decision. If you get married without concluding an antenuptial contract, it automatically means that you are married in community of property. What is considered a civil union? The Civil Union Act is an act in South Africa that aims at legalizing same-sex marriages. It allows two people, regardless of their gender, to form either a civil union or a civil partnership. Couples opting for a civil union marriage regime enjoy the same rights, responsibilities, and legal consequences as those in a civil marriage. A civil union is often referred to as a same-sex union and can also be, in fact, entered into by opposite-sexed couples as well. What is considered a customary marriage? Customary law in South Africa governs the laws relating to customary marriages, which is also referred to as traditional marriages. Knowing the advantages and disadvantages of the different types of marriages in South Africa is of utmost importance before deciding to get married or before registering your marriage. It is also worth noting that there are forecasted amendments and changes to the marriage legislation and legal landscape in South Africa. So it's advisable for you to consult with a subject matter expert around the same time as you start planning your wedding. Granted, this may not always be the most fun part of planning your wedding, but it is essential to have these difficult conversations around assets, liabilities, savings, and finances, as well as the unfortunate eventualities such as death or divorce. What is an ANC, an antenuptial contract, and why do we need them? The ANC gives a couple an opportunity to agree on their financial future and how their assets and gains will be distributed or divided when their marriage comes to an end because of death or divorce. It also prevents a marriage from automatically being an in-community of property marriage. An antenuptial contract is entered into where couples do not get married in COP or in community of property, and it is concluded before the marriage. An ANC might be especially important for somebody who already has assets, for example, a business or a home, or someone who comes into a marriage with family obligations, such as children from a previous marriage. What is the difference between an ANC agreement with or without accrual? If an ANC is drafted without the accrual system, the partners can keep what is theirs before the marriage and also keep what becomes theirs after the marriage. If the agreement is with the accrual system, each party still retains his or her estate, but the agreement determines how the growth in each partner's estate will be shared. Here's what you can expect when you attend at your lawyer to draw up your ANC. When you sit down with your lawyer, you'll be first asked to list your assets and the approximate current market value of each item. These are included in the contract and will be used to work out the accrual later. You and your partner can agree to specifically exclude any assets, but the details of the assets must be very accurate to prevent any legal issues in the future. It is also important to leave enough time for the contract to be drawn up by your lawyer who is also a registered notary and who will deliver the contract to the deeds office. Also expect a fee for this service. This must happen before the wedding day. Apart from your registration fees, please also expect attorney fees and advisory fees, as well as fees to have the agreement drawn up. If you require a taxation specialist to advise you with regards to your ANC, also expect that to carry a separate fee as well. What is a post-marriage contract, and can you sign an ANC after you have been married? If you get married without having your ANC contract signed in time, you will then need to apply to the High Court jointly to be granted permission to have a late signature accepted, and your contract will then be a post-marriage contract. This application is time-consuming and costly, so it is advisable to please leave enough time before your wedding to conclude your ANC. What are the formalities for a valid marriage? If you wish to get married, you need to ensure that you are legally allowed to marry, for example, your age, your status, and your consent. You also need to understand the legal consequences of a marriage. What are your required documentation that you need? On the day of the registration of the marriage, you would need to ensure that you have a valid identity document and that you do have any marital status documents. For example, if you are divorced or widowed, these documents need to accompany your identity document. Only marriage officers authorized in terms of the Marriage Act to perform marriages may do so. In addition, a marriage officer would require the presence of at least 2 witnesses to that marriage. The marriage may be conducted in a church or a building or any other public or private house with open doors in it. In South Africa, most Hindu priests are marriage officers, and this is something to ask your priest before your wedding day. If they are not a marriage officer, they can still perform the religious marriage, but they will then guide you on how to have your marriage registered. For example, as we have seen previously, a priest can arrange for their colleague, who's also a priest and who's a marriage officer, to complete your marriage certificate with you and assist you in registering your marriage. Alternatively, your priest will request that you attend at the Department of Home Affairs, and there will often be an appointed marriage officer located at their offices, and you can conclude your civil marriage at the Department of Home Affairs. If you are getting married abroad and then, for example, off on a honeymoon for a few weeks, it is advisable to conclude your civil marriage in South Africa before traveling abroad for your religious marriage. What documentation is involved in registering a marriage? The couple, the 2 witnesses that we mentioned previously, and the marriage officer must sign the marriage register once the marriage has been concluded. The marriage officer then issues the parties with a handwritten marriage certificate. This is often referred to as an abridged marriage certificate. The marriage officer then submits the marriage register to the nearest Department of Home Affairs at a later stage. This does not need to be done immediately. If you require a full unabridged, fully typed up marriage certificate, you would need to then obtain this from the Department of Home Affairs yourself. If you are a foreign national marrying a South African individual, there are a few extra formalities that are required, so it is best to obtain legal advice in the circumstance well before your wedding date.